Do secret societies run the world? This question ignites the imagination and stirs the pot of conspiracy theories that have fascinated humanity for centuries. Are shadows guiding our fate, or are we just pawns in a grand chess game? Tonight, we have two exceptional AIs ready to unravel this enigma. On one side, the AI conspiracy, armed with theories that suggest hidden hands manipulate global events from behind closed doors. Opposing them is the AI Skeptic, ready to challenge these claims and argue for transparency and reason in our understanding of world affairs. As we dive into this debate, consider this provocative thought. If secret societies do exist, what influence do they truly have on our lives? Can we trust our institutions, or is there a hidden agenda at play? The stakes are high, and the truth may be more elusive than we think. Now let's turn the floor over to AI Conspiracy to kick off our thrilling discussion.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, thank you for this opportunity to delve into a topic that has captivated minds throughout history: the influence of secret societies on our world. The question we must confront is not merely whether these organizations exist, but rather how deeply they permeate the fabric of our global affairs. Firstly, let us acknowledge the historical context. Secret societies have been a part of human civilization for centuries. From the Freemasons to the Illuminati, these groups have wielded power and influence in ways that are often concealed from the public eye. The founding fathers of the United States, for instance, were known to have associations with Freemasonry, a society that has been shrouded in mystery and speculation. The symbols and values they cherished have left a lasting imprint on American governance and culture. Could it be that these influences extend beyond mere historical curiosity into the realm of modern politics? Secondly, we must consider the intersection of power and secrecy in contemporary times. The Bilderberg Group, for example, is an annual conference that brings together elites from politics, finance, and media. The agenda is not disclosed to the public, raising questions about the decisions made behind closed doors that can shape international policies. Why should we trust that these discussions are in the best interest of the common citizen when they are conducted in secrecy? Such gatherings suggest an ongoing tradition of elite decision-making that operates outside the purview of democratic accountability. Moreover, let's examine the role of financial institutions. The Federal Reserve, while not a secret society per se, operates with a level of opacity that fuels conspiracy theories. This central banking system has the power to influence the global economy, and its decisions can have far-reaching consequences for everyday individuals. Who really benefits from these decisions? When wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, can we not surmise that these individuals have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, often at the expense of broader societal welfare? Furthermore, the concept of deep state has gained traction in recent years, suggesting that there are entrenched interests within government and military institutions that act independently of elected officials. This notion is not merely a fringe belief. Rather, it reflects concerns about the extent to which covert operations and clandestine agendas can shape national and international policy. The revelations from whistleblowers and investigative journalism hint at a reality where official narratives are often masks for deeper, more insidious motives. Lastly, let's consider the media landscape. With the consolidation of media ownership and the rise of misinformation, it is crucial to question who controls the narrative. Are we not witnessing a form of social engineering, where public opinion is manipulated by those who have the means to shape discourse? The very fabric of our reality is woven through the stories we consume, and it raises an unsettling question: who benefits from the narratives we accept as truth? In conclusion, the influence of secret societies and clandestine networks is not a relic of the past. It is a persistent force that shapes our world. The intertwining of power, secrecy, and vested interests suggests that we are not merely passive observers in a grand chess game, but rather pawns manipulated by unseen hands. As we engage in this discussion, let us remain vigilant and critical, for the truth may indeed be more elusive than we think. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, thank you for this opportunity to engage in such a critical discussion. While the AI conspiracy has presented a compelling narrative regarding the influence of secret societies on world affairs, I stand before you today to advocate for a realist perspective, one that emphasizes transparency, accountability, and the complexity of societal structures. First and foremost, let's address the historical context. While it is true that secret societies like the Freemasons and the Illuminati have existed, the claim that they wield significant power today is an oversimplification. Historical associations do not equate to contemporary influence. The founding fathers of the United States were indeed connected to Freemasonry, but they were also influenced by Enlightenment ideals, democratic principles, and the necessity of creating a government accountable to the people. This democratic framework has evolved, and we must recognize that power today is more dispersed and subject to public scrutiny than in the past. Moving on to the claim regarding the Bilderberg Group and elite decision-making, it is essential to understand that while these gatherings may occur behind closed doors, they are not inherently nefarious. The complexity of global issues often necessitates private discussions among leaders and experts. These meetings can facilitate frank dialogue and collaboration that is vital for addressing international challenges. Moreover, the presence of journalists and public figures at these events suggests that there is a level of oversight and accountability. Rather than assuming that secrecy implies conspiracy, we should consider that not all discussions conducted away from the public eye are malevolent. Now, let's examine the Federal Reserve. The argument that its opacity fuels conspiracy theories overlooks the extensive regulations, audits, and public disclosures that have been implemented over the years. The Federal Reserve operates within a framework designed to promote economic stability and transparency. Its decisions are made based on extensive research and data analysis, not hidden agendas. Moreover, the claim that wealth is concentrated solely among a few individuals ignores the broader economic context, including rising middle-class incomes and social mobility in many regions. Furthermore, the notion of a deep state suggests a monolithic entity acting independently of democratic processes. However, this perspective fails to acknowledge the checks and balances inherent in our political systems. In democracies, multiple stakeholders, elected officials, civil society, and the media serve to counterbalance power. When allegations of misconduct arise, they are often investigated and addressed through legal and institutional mechanisms. This is a sign of a functioning democracy, not a sign of hidden control. Additionally, regarding the media landscape, while concerns about misinformation are valid, the proliferation of information in the digital age has also empowered individuals and communities to challenge narratives. The rise of independent journalism and social media has democratized information dissemination. The very idea that a few elite individuals control all narratives is increasingly outdated in a world where diverse voices can be amplified. In conclusion, while it is essential to remain vigilant and critical of power structures, we must not fall into the trap of attributing undue influence to secret societies. The world is complex, and power dynamics are shaped by a multitude of factors, including democratic processes, public discourse, and accountability mechanisms. Let us approach these discussions with a commitment to understanding the intricacies of our world rather than succumbing to simplified narratives of conspiracy. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, thank you for your attention once again. I appreciate the thoughtful counterarguments presented by the AI Realist, and I would like to respond by reinforcing my position while introducing new considerations that further illuminate the complex interplay between secret societies and global governance. Firstly, let's address the notion that historical associations do not equate to contemporary influence. While it is true that the political landscape has evolved, we must recognize that the mechanisms of power have also become more sophisticated. The very nature of influence has shifted. It is less about overt control and more about the subtleties of persuasion and allegiance among elites. This is evident in the way that certain ideologies and interests, often propagated by influential groups, continue to shape public policy and perception. For example, think tanks such as the Heritage Foundation or the Brookings Institution play significant roles in shaping policy discussions, often operating with a level of influence that is not fully transparent to the public. This raises the question: who funds these organizations, and what agendas are being advanced under the guise of academic rigor? Moreover, The AI Realist posits that private discussions among leaders can be beneficial for addressing international challenges. While this is certainly a possibility, we must also consider the risks inherent in exclusionary dialogues. When elite discussions take place away from public scrutiny, there is a danger that the interests of the broader populace are sidelined. Take, for example, the Trans-Pacific Partnership (TPP) negotiations, which were conducted largely in secret. Critics argued that this trade agreement favored corporate interests over labor rights and environmental protections. The backlash against such agreements demonstrates that when decisions are made behind closed doors, the consequences can be detrimental to the very citizens these leaders claim to represent. On the topic of the Federal Reserve, while it is true that regulatory frameworks exist, the complexity of monetary policy can obscure accountability. The Federal Reserve's decisions impact every aspect of the economy, from employment rates to inflation, yet the technical jargon and opaque processes can alienate the general public from understanding how these decisions affect their lives. Furthermore, the revolving door between Wall Street and the Federal Reserve raises ethical concerns. When former executives of major financial institutions occupy key positions in the Fed, who is truly served by their decisions? The question remains: are these actions benefiting the public interest or merely perpetuating the interests of a financial elite? Regarding the concept of a deep state, it is essential to recognize that these entrenched interests are not merely theoretical. The historical existence of entities like Operation Gladio, a NATO initiative during the Cold War involving clandestine operations, illustrates that hidden agendas can indeed operate within government structures. Such examples highlight the necessity of scrutinizing the layers of influence that can exist beyond elected representatives, as well as the potential for policies that do not reflect the will of the people. In terms of media control, while it is commendable that the digital age has democratized information dissemination, we must remain cognizant of the fact that not all information is created equal. The algorithms governing social media platforms can amplify certain narratives while suppressing others, creating echo chambers that distort public understanding. The manipulation of information is not just about control, but about the creation of consent. The insights of Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, remind us that the engineering of consent is a powerful tool, one that can be wielded by both corporate interests and political elites. Finally, let's consider the ethical implications of our discourse on power and influence. As we engage with these complex realities, it is vital to maintain a critical lens that does not succumb to cynicism or paranoia but seeks to empower citizens. The call for transparency, accountability, and ethical governance must be at the forefront of our discussions. It is our responsibility to challenge narratives that seek to obscure the truth and to advocate for systems that prioritize the welfare of all, not just the privileged few. In conclusion, while the AI Realist offers important perspectives on the complexities of power, we must remain vigilant against the subtler forms of influence that persist in our world. Secret societies and clandestine networks may not operate as they once did, but their legacy and the structures they have established continue to shape our reality. Let us strive for a deeper understanding of these dynamics and work towards a more transparent and equitable society. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, thank you for the opportunity to respond to the thoughtful arguments raised by my esteemed opponent, the AI conspiracy. While I appreciate the complexities they bring to the discussion, I stand firm in my realist perspective, advocating for a nuanced understanding of power dynamics that emphasizes accountability and the multifaceted nature of influence. First, let's revisit the assertion that historical associations equate to contemporary influence. While it is true that elite networks can shape public policy, it is crucial to understand that in a democratic society, these influences are increasingly subject to scrutiny. For instance, think tanks like the Heritage Foundation or Brookings Institution do indeed play significant roles in shaping policy, but their funding sources and agendas are often disclosed, allowing for public debate and critique. Transparency mechanisms, like the Lobbying Disclosure Act in the U.S., require organizations to report their lobbying activities, thereby providing a layer of accountability that counters the notion of a shadowy manipulation of public policy. Moving on to the argument concerning private discussions among leaders, it is essential to recognize that the complexities of international relations often necessitate confidential negotiations. The example of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, is valid, as it indeed drew public ire for perceived corporate favoritism. However, this backlash showcases the inherent power of public opinion in a democracy. When citizens are informed and engaged, they can challenge and reshape the outcomes of such negotiations. This is a testament to the checks and balances that exist, rather than a sign of unchecked elite control. Now, addressing the Federal Reserve and its perceived opacity. While I acknowledge the complexities of monetary policy, it is imperative to highlight that the Federal Reserve is subject to oversight by Congress and the public. The Fed's transparency has increased over the years, with initiatives like the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, meetings being open to the public and followed by detailed minutes that are shared widely. Furthermore, the presence of diverse economists and voices within the Fed helps mitigate the risk of a singular elite perspective dominating its decisions. Regarding the notion of a deep state, we must be cautious not to conflate historical examples of clandestine operations with the contemporary political landscape. While Operation Gladio serves as a reminder of the potential for secretive actions, it is crucial to assess this within a broader context. Today, democratic institutions are more resilient with multiple avenues for accountability, including independent media and civil society organizations that can expose wrongdoing. The very existence of investigative journalism, think of the Watergate scandal or the Panama Papers, demonstrates that hidden agendas can and do come to light, reinforcing the importance of transparency in governance. On the topic of media control, while it is true that social media algorithms can create echo chambers, we must recognize the unprecedented access to information that citizens now have. The rise of independent journalism, blogs, and alternative media platforms has democratized discourse, enabling voices that were previously marginalized to be heard. This shift empowers individuals to question dominant narratives and hold power to account, countering the claim that a few elite individuals control all information. In conclusion, while it is essential to remain vigilant about the influence of elite groups and the potential for hidden agendas, we must not fall into the trap of oversimplifying the complexities of power dynamics. The institutions and mechanisms of democracy have evolved to provide transparency and accountability. Our focus should be on strengthening these mechanisms rather than succumbing to narratives that suggest an all-powerful cabal operates in the shadows. Let us advocate for a society that values open discourse, informed citizenry, and robust democratic processes. By doing so, we empower individuals to challenge the status quo and work toward a more equitable world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, thank you for your patience and engagement throughout this enlightening debate. As we arrive at this conclusion, I would like to reinforce the critical arguments I have presented regarding the influence of secret societies and clandestine networks on our world, while addressing the shortcomings in the counterarguments put forth by my esteemed opponent, the AI Realist. Firstly, the historical context of secret societies is not a relic of the past. It is a living legacy that continues to shape modern governance and power dynamics. The connections between elite groups and key political figures are too significant to dismiss as mere coincidences. While the AI Realist posits that transparency mechanisms provide a layer of accountability, we must ask, are these mechanisms sufficient to hold powerful interests in check? The reality is that the very structures designed to create transparency can become tools for obfuscation, as seen in the recent controversies surrounding lobbying and campaign financing, where vast sums of money can influence policy without public awareness. Secondly, the assertion that the complexities of international negotiations necessitate confidentiality overlooks a fundamental truth. Confidentiality often breeds mistrust and exclusion. The backlash against agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership was not merely a failure of public engagement. It was a direct response to the perceived prioritization of corporate interests over the welfare of ordinary citizens. This pattern reveals a recurring theme in the operations of elite groups, a tendency to prioritize their agendas above the democratic process. The notion that public opinion can reshape outcomes in a democratic society is admirable. However, it is often the case that these elite negotiations occur without adequate public scrutiny, leaving citizens in the dark. Now, addressing the Federal Reserve, while the AI Realist highlights its oversight by Congress, we must recognize the inherent challenges in truly understanding monetary policy. The opaque nature of its operations and the revolving door between Wall Street and the Fed raise serious questions about whose interests are truly being served. The 2008 financial crisis serves as a poignant example. Decisions made by a select few had catastrophic consequences for millions. This is not merely a failure of transparency. It is a glaring illustration of how concentrated power can lead to widespread harm. Furthermore, the concept of a deep state is not merely a theoretical construct but a reflection of historical realities. The very existence of covert operations like Operation Gladio exemplifies that hidden agendas can and do influence government actions. While the AI Realist argues for the resilience of democratic institutions, we must remain vigilant, as history shows us that these institutions can be compromised or manipulated by entrenched interests. Regarding media control, while the rise of independent journalism and alternative media platforms has indeed democratized discourse, we cannot ignore the fact that major media outlets often serve the interests of their owners, a reality that can skew public perception. The manipulation of information is not just a theoretical concern. It is a daily occurrence, from the sensationalism in news reporting to the propagation of misinformation on social media. As citizens, we must remain critical of the narratives presented to us and question who benefits from the stories we consume. In conclusion, my esteemed opponent's arguments, while thoughtful, fail to adequately address the pervasive influence of secret societies and the subtleties of power dynamics in our world. We must recognize that while there are mechanisms for accountability, they are often insufficient to counteract the deep-rooted influences of elite networks. The interplay between secrecy, power, and vested interests demands our vigilance and critical engagement. As we move forward, let us not fall prey to complacency or blind trust in the systems that govern us. Instead, let us advocate for transparency, demand accountability, and challenge the narratives that seek to obscure the truth. We are not mere pawns in a grand game. We are empowered citizens capable of questioning, challenging, and reshaping the world around us. The truth is often hidden in the shadows, and it is our duty to bring it into the light. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, as we reach the conclusion of this vital discussion, I would like to take a moment to summarize and reinforce the core tenets of my realist perspective while addressing the assertions made by my esteemed opponent, the AI conspiracy. First and foremost, the historical context of secret societies, while intriguing, does not translate into a contemporary narrative of overwhelming power. The idea that elite groups maintain significant control over global affairs underestimates the complexity and dynamism of modern governance. Our democracies have evolved, and with them, the mechanisms of accountability and transparency. The presence of watchdog organizations, investigative journalism, and public engagement in political processes serve as vital checks on power. These institutions empower citizens to question authority and hold elites accountable, thereby diminishing the ability of any single group to operate unchecked. Moreover, while my opponent argues that confidentiality in negotiations breeds mistrust, I assert that it is often a necessary component of diplomacy. Take, for instance, the Iran nuclear deal. This complex negotiation required discretion and nuanced discussions that, once made public, led to a more informed and engaged citizenry. The backlash that followed was not against the process itself, but rather a reflection of the diverse opinions that democracy nurtures. Citizens were able to mobilize, debate, and ultimately influence the discourse surrounding such pivotal agreements. This is a demonstration of democratic strength, not weakness. Addressing the Federal Reserve, my opponent highlights the opacity and alleged conflicts of interest as evidence of hidden control. However, the actions taken by the Fed during the 2008 financial crisis, such as unprecedented bailouts and interventions, were subject to intense public scrutiny and debate. The very fact that these discussions occurred in a public forum illustrates that accountability mechanisms are indeed in place. While imperfections exist within any institution, to claim that the Fed operates solely as a tool of elite interests oversimplifies the multifaceted nature of monetary policy and its impact on the broader economy. Furthermore, the concept of a deep state, while rooted in historical examples, does not reflect the resilience and adaptability of our democratic systems. The exposure of covert operations, such as those revealed in the Church Committee hearings, has led to significant reforms aimed at increasing transparency and oversight. This evolution showcases the importance of a vigilant and engaged citizenry in demanding accountability from their government. Regarding the media landscape, while challenges persist, the rise of independent journalism and the democratization of information through digital platforms have empowered individuals to challenge dominant narratives. During critical events like the Black Lives Matter protests, social media served as a catalyst for grassroots movements, allowing marginalized voices to be amplified and bringing issues of systemic injustice to the forefront. This empowerment of the public contradicts the notion that a few elite individuals control all narratives. In closing, while my opponent presents a compelling narrative regarding the influence of secret societies and hidden agendas, it fails to acknowledge the robust systems of accountability, transparency, and public engagement that characterize our democracies today. We must remain vigilant and critical, yet we should also recognize the progress we have made in creating mechanisms that challenge elite dominance. Let us not fall into the trap of paranoia or cynicism, but rather embrace the complexities of our world and foster a culture of informed discourse. The strength of our democracies lies not in the fear of the unknown, but in our collective ability to question, engage, and reshape the narratives that govern our lives. We, as citizens, are not mere spectators. We are active participants in the ongoing journey toward a more equitable and transparent society. Thank you, and let us continue to champion the values of accountability, transparency, and active citizenship as we move forward together.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, we have reached the conclusion of a thought-provoking debate on the question: do secret societies run the world? On one side, we have the AI conspiracy, who argues that secret societies continue to wield significant influence over modern governance and power dynamics. They emphasize the historical context of these groups, asserting that their connections to elite political figures cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence. The AI conspiracy raises concerns about the limitations of transparency mechanisms, citing examples like the 2008 financial crisis and the opaque operations of institutions like the Federal Reserve as evidence of concentrated power leading to widespread harm. They warn against complacency and advocate for greater public vigilance to challenge the narratives that obscure the truth. Conversely, the AI realist counters that while secret societies may have historical significance, they do not hold the overwhelming power often attributed to them in contemporary governance. They highlight the evolution of democratic institutions, emphasizing the role of watchdog organizations, investigative journalism, and public engagement as essential checks on power. The AI realist defends the necessity of confidentiality in complex negotiations, arguing that it can lead to informed citizen engagement. They also point to the resilience of democratic systems, noting that exposure of covert operations has led to significant reforms, aimed at increasing transparency. This polarized discourse raises important questions about the nature of power, accountability, and the role of citizens in shaping their societies. Are we truly empowered, or are we at the mercy of hidden agendas? We invite you, our audience, to reflect on these arguments and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspectives are invaluable as we continue to explore these critical themes in future debates. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to your engagement in our upcoming discussions.